Today, I'm working with the Dooa Terrabase. I've never scaped anything with this thing before, so it could get really interesting. Let's get right into it. First though, if you're new to the channel, welcome. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for all of your support. All right, so these Dooa Terrabases are super hot in the hobby right now. I had a very difficult time finding them. I couldn't find them online anywhere. And finally, after a ton of searching, I was able to find one at Aquarium Zen, which is a neat little aquascaping shop near my home. The Terrabase comes in 3 sizes, a large, medium, and small. I originally had wanted the medium, but the only one that Aquarium Zen had was a large, so I figured, why not just go big or go home? And so I grabbed the large, and I'm really excited to scape it. So if you don't know what the Terrabase is, it's basically just a giant terracotta pot. It's hollow on the inside, and that's where you fill it with water, and the water seeps out and soaks the plants that you plant on the outside. There's no soil needed for this kind of setup. Just simply wrap it in moss or any other type of plant that would work on a hard surface like this, and keep it in a humid environment, and it thrives. It's a super cool concept, and I've never done it before, and I've always wanted to. So it should look really cool once it's grown in. I'm really excited to get to work on it. To set one of these things up, it's actually pretty simple, and it's very easy to make it look really cool and really nice. So it's a very easy, beginner-friendly kind of thing to set up if you're into the terrarium side of the hobby or the aquarium side. It just looks really cool, and I'm very excited to see what I can come up with today. So first things first, in order to plant, I need to spray this thing down generously with tap water and get it really nice and soaked. This is gonna help the planting process go quicker and easier. Okay, so now that I have the Terrabase wet, which it's already drying because it's terracotta, I need to get the moss prepared. So this is a giant pack of moss that my friends over at Boost Plant sent me. Just like always, the plants in this build are sponsored by Boost Plant. So if you haven't checked them out yet for all your aquarium and terrarium plant needs, I highly suggest you do. But let's get this moss prepared. I'm just gonna take my scissors here and just get a little slice going. I think I should have plenty of moss for this. This whole portion is this is 2 large golf balls in portion size here. So let's get this prepped over here. Trying to get as much of it out. And most of this moss is actually grown immersed. Pretty much 90% of the plants, well, no, thinking about it, 100% of the plants that I'm working with today are grown immersed, which is exactly what I want, considering that this system is also going to be immersed. So there shouldn't be much of a transition phase between the plants and planting on the Terrabase. So, all right, next thing I need is this thread. And I've got this green thread from the folks over at UNS. I got it with my Foresta that is no longer up and running, but I've got several of these thread pieces here, and I'm just gonna take the thread and wrap it around the Terrabase. I'm gonna do this a ton just to make sure the moss is nice and stuck on here. And this is gonna take a while, so I'll probably put this into a time lapse. But what I'm gonna do, very simply, is I'm just gonna turn the Terrabase onto its side, like this. And I'm just gonna work one side at a time on the Terrabase and just rotate it as I go. So that'll be my plan. I'm hoping it works out. It should work out, but we'll see. So let's get right into that. I also forgot to mention the moss that I'll be using here is the Christmas moss. This is a great moss. I love it. I think just for the Terrabase system that I am envisioning, I think the Christmas moss is gonna look the best. So let's get right into that. And I want to tie a knot right here. If I can get a knot around maybe like the base right here. There we go. I guess you're seeing right here, right now, that I kind of struggle with knots. Maybe that's why I prefer slip-on shoes. Anyway, all right. Okay, so this turned out really good. There's a ton of thread on this, and as I was building it, I realized only half of it's gonna be exposed. The other half is gonna be on the back side of the tank. So I didn't plant the back side because that would just be more maintenance work and just be a section that I'm never gonna see. So I get the scene right side up here, like that. Let's see if I can get it in the light. Goodness. There we go, something like that. I have made a massive mess with moss everywhere. So I'm gonna clean that up, and then what I'll need to do is I'll need to take my scissors here and all the really chunky stuff on the moss wall here, I'm gonna trim it down so it's nice and even. That's gonna help the moss grow quicker and grow thicker rather than taller. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna clean up, and then I'm gonna take my scissors and I'm gonna trim this thing down, and then it will be time to start adding other plants. So I'm gonna do that right now. All right, so this is all cleaned up now, the Christmas moss. I've got some leftover, but I think for the time being, I'm just gonna put it in a cup or something and keep it nice and humid, and I'll use it for another project here soon. But it's time to trim this thing down. So I'm gonna grab my scissors and get to trimming. Clean up one mess just to make another. That's just the way this hobby seems to work. For this one, I think I'm gonna have to go at an angle here just to make sure it's with this. I'm just looking for, you know, any big chunks that kind of stick out awkwardly. Now that it's all clean and sleek looking, I'm gonna grab some other plants. And those plants are gonna be a mixture of bucephalandras and maybe a couple other anubiases that I've got in my bucephalandra storage box. I call it my boost box. I'm gonna go grab those, and then we're gonna place them on here and just kind of decorate it a little bit, and then we should be getting very close to it being completed. So let's grab those bucephalandras and get those on here, and we'll go from there. Okay, so right here I've got my boost box, and this is basically just a UNS 25S that I've had immersed bucephalandras and anubiases growing in for the last 3 months. I've just got some plastic wrap over this, and I've got it under a twin star light, and that keeps it nice and humid and nice and moist. I've got a lot of really healthy bucephalandras in here. Most of them I unfortunately don't know the name to, but some of them have flowers on them, and I think that's super cool. So we're gonna use as much of these as possible, and then we'll take a look at how it's looking from there. And we might be done, I might add more, but we'll see. Let's get these bucephalandras on here And it's the same principle. I'm just gonna stick them on somewhere on the moss and then use the string and tie them on. So let's pick out the bucephalandras and get them installed. Okay, so the bucephalandra is all attached on here. I'm really liking how it's turning out so far. I think this is gonna look really cool, and it's really just gonna be a cool setup. I do, however, believe that there needs to be some color to this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab a couple of plants that I've got lying around that'll add a nice pop of color to this. Once I do that, then I think we'll be just about done. So let me go grab those plants. I'll show you what they are in a second and we'll get them planted. Okay, so the first plant is Alternanthera reinecki mini. Now, I originally wasn't planning on putting this plant on the system, but I've got an extra tissue culture cup here that is full of Alternanthera. So I think I'm gonna put it in a couple places. I don't wanna do it too heavily where it can overwhelm the scape, but I do want to add a splash of color. I don't even know if this is gonna work or not. It's possible that these plants could just straight up die, but I think it'll be an interesting test and an experiment. And if it does work, I think it'll look really cool. These are tissue culture form, so they're not submerged at all. They've never been submerged, so there shouldn't have to be that conversion time between immersed and submerged growth. It should just be fully adapted to immersed growth, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But if it does, I think this thing's gonna look awesome. So I'm gonna grab a couple pieces and get them planted. Okay, so for the final plant, it's actually gonna be a technique that I'm not sure if it's gonna work or not, but I've got this immersed grown Ludwigia super red that I'm just gonna kind of bend over like this. But if it does work, I think it'll look super cool because it'll all just kind of cascade down. So we're gonna go with that, see how this works out. All right, I think planting's done, which means it's time to move on to the last steps. So there you have it. The Terrabase is now planted. I'm actually really happy with how this turned out. I'm excited to see how it grows and if things work and don't work. I'm very curious to see how this is all gonna work out because I've never done anything like this before. So I'm excited to see this, and I think it's got a great start going already. I think the bucephalandra is really gonna thrive, which means now it's time to put it in the tank. And for the tank, I've got the brand new UNS PRISM setup. This is the 20TM, which if you know UNS tanks at all, it's essentially the 20T. The only difference is they can't say 20T because it's already taken by the 20T. So this is the 20TM. It's gonna fit absolutely perfectly in this system. There's a lid on this system too, so I'm really excited to see this thing in its full glory, which means it's time to get this thing prepped, get the base in, and then put the Terrabase in, and we'll be all set. So there you have it. The whole thing is planted. I'm really excited about how this turned out. I think it looks really cool. I do want to mention what makes the UNS PRISM so cool as a tank is the fact that it's got metered edges for the lid. So this thing sits completely flush. You can't even tell that there's a lid there. And then there's a little hole on the top for your finger to go in so you can lift it out. Super cool feature. I'm excited to see if this thing holds in the humidity like I want it to. But for now, all that's left to do is to mist the heck out of this thing, get it nice and moist and humid, and then fill the Terrabase with water, and then we'll see the final results. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you're not subscribed, please go ahead and do so. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.